This week, I am in the throes of celebrating the canonization of Carlo Acutis, who is now officially Saint Carlo Acutis. This past Sunday, he was canonized along with Pier Giorgio Frassati, two young saints who are such wonderful, wonderful role models, particularly for young people and for our kids out there, because they led such average and accessible lives. But Carlo especially has a very, very dear place in my heart. I love him, and I feel like there is so much that we can learn from him. Part of what his real appeal is that he was just an average kid. He played sports and did okay. He went to school. He was known as a class clown and had a lot of friends. He played video games. They say, like, when he was growing up, he had dogs and cats, and um, he loved the Smurfs and the Transformers, and just like grew up in our generation, and so has had experiences and lived a life very, very similar to ours, which is such a special gift in a saint. And he had a deep, deep, deep love and appreciation of the Eucharist. One of his quotes is that people who stay in front of the sun get suntans, and people who stay in front of the Eucharist become saints. He loved the Eucharist. He knew about the true presence, which means that the Eucharist in the Catholic Church, it's not a symbol. It's not something that is supposed to remind us of Jesus, but there's actually a miracle that happens at every single Mass. It's a process called transubstantiation, which is basically a fancy word for the miracle of this bread that actually becomes the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus, but it still looks like and tastes like simple bread. And so it requires that faith for us to believe. But every once in a while, throughout the centuries, Jesus has permitted these amazing Eucharistic miracles to take place where the host, the ordinary bread that has been consecrated, so it looks ordinary, but it is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus. It actually will congeal. The blood will congeal into droplets of blood, and the host, the bread, will become flesh. And it is really, really astounding. These Eucharistic miracles are given as proof that this miracle does happen every single time at the Mass, which is so awesome. And so one of the God-given gifts that Carlo had was he had a tremendous skill for computers and all things technology. And as the boom of the internet was coming and the rise of computers and all of this, and other people were trying to make money and get things for themselves, he actually spent his time researching and documenting all of the church approved Eucharistic miracles. There are over 100 of them, and he compiled them into these panels which travel around the globe. A lot of different parishes have had opportunities to have them on display so that we lay people can experience them too, but they're also online. And so anyone can access them at any time. I've got that link down below in the show notes if you wanted to check it out. It has them all separated by country, and you can click on each one, and it'll show you what the panel looks like with a description and pictures from each of the miracles, which is so, so cool. And I love that he spent his life doing that. But I actually want to tell you guys today about a story that you may not know about Carlo Acutis. So, like I said, he went to school, and he would try to find little ways that he could sacrifice throughout the day. And so, one of the things that he would do is if anybody was ever in need during lunch, he would give his lunch money and choose to fast through the lunch hour and offer that as a sacrifice. And so some of the less less desirable students, some of the ones, there were students in his class who really wanted to take advantage of him, and so they found out about it. And even though they didn't necessarily need his money, they learned, hey, whenever we ask Carlo for money, he's going to give it to us, so we should just start asking him for money. So they would ask him for his lunch money, and Carlo would always give it to them. And his teachers caught wind of what was going on. And one of them approached him and said, Carlo, they're taking advantage of you. You really don't need to give them your money. They don't need your money. And he just smiled and looked at his teacher and said, "It's all right. I don't mind. I appreciate the opportunity to make a sacrifice." And then he just went on and he smiled. And so these boys thought that they were getting a fast one over on him. They thought that they were tricking him and getting away with it because he didn't know any better. But it wasn't that he didn't know any better. It was that he still chose to sacrifice, even though he knew that maybe they weren't exactly in need and maybe they weren't the ideal person that we would think when we want to be giving our money and choosing to not eat instead. And this message, I feel like, is so important for us because sometimes when we go through life and we think about giving, we really put ourselves in the role of God and we choose to judge the person that we have the opportunity to give to. And we judge what they're doing with it, if they deserve the gift, if they are appreciating us, if they're doing with the gift what they said that they're going to do. But what Carlo can teach us through this profound experience that this teenager was able to do, which that in and of itself is just amazing that he was a teen living this way, is that regardless who the recipient is, and regardless what they do with it, and regardless how they respond, and if we get a thank you or anything in return or anything at the end of the day, it does not change the fact that we have been generous and we have earned our graces and we have done what is right and good in God's eyes. And we're setting that example. And what I love about Carlo's specific example is you better believe, so those boys who were in school with him are most likely still alive. And they know that they were trying to take advantage of a saint. And I fully believe that those experiences have transformed their lives. Like they had the opportunity to see firsthand what it means to give that generously. So when we are going through our day and we think about how we can give, sometimes it's our treasure, sometimes it's money, right? But sometimes we're giving our talents and sharing the gifts that God gives us. And then sometimes it's just a matter of giving our time, right? We talk about when we tithe, we talk about our treasure, our talent, and our time. And maybe we're better about being generous with money or material goods when we give away things. We don't care who they go to and what they do with it. And maybe we're even still pretty good with that when it comes to our talents. Like we know that God has given us the gift to, I don't know, maybe we have musical talents, and so we're singing in the choir at church, or maybe we have graphic artist talents, and we make flyers for the parish, or do something else where we're using our skills, and we feel good about that because we know we were given those skills. But I find in my life, and maybe it's the same for you, that when it comes to giving my time, that is the one that I am the stingiest with. I really don't like when I perceive that someone has, quote, wasted my time. If I have volunteered to do something or I'm showing up to do something, I want people to respect me. I want people to acknowledge me. And I don't want to be sitting around feeling like I am just giving for nothing. But wow. So that's my plan for this week. And I hope that maybe you can join me on this one, is to really think about how we are giving of ourselves when we're talking about our treasure, our talent, or our time, and to just give generously and to not think about who's receiving it and to not think about what we're supposed to get in return and to not think about anything other than I am giving today, and this is a beautiful sacrifice that I can do for the love of God and for the love of my neighbor, which is exactly what our call is as Christians. That's all I have for you today. I'm Maria Riley, just a sinner in the throes of trying to be a saint.